Hello, everybody, and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And that's it. We're back. But it's a little weird. Noel and Tim aren't here for this episode. I miss my boys. I've never done a solo episode, but don't worry, they'll still be around. They'll pop in when they can, just whenever our schedules align. But we're going to have content for you nonetheless. Now, the first video back is going to cover the college football playoffs and the New Year's Six bowl games. We've had a crazy college football season. A lot has gone down, and now it's beginning to wrap up with some really, really good games for you guys. Now let's run through it. The first game that we have on the table is the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, where we have 9th-ranked Oklahoma State taking on 5th-ranked Notre Dame. Notre Dame is favored in this game by 2 points, but we have two teams that will match up very, very well against each other. Oklahoma State entering 11-2, and the runner-up in the Big 12 have had a very, very good season, much past their standards, with wins including Bedlam against Oklahoma, led by quarterback Spencer Sanders, running back Jalen Warren, and wide receiver Tay Martin on the offense. They're going to look to throw the ball and run it with Jalen Warren. They're going to be a high-powered offense, but Notre Dame is going to look to slow them down. The Irish are 11-1 entering today. Their only loss coming early in the season at home against Cincinnati, a Cincinnati team that has run the table and found their way into the playoffs, but they have looked very, very strong down the gate, led by quarterback Jack Cohen, throwing for 2,600 yards. The transfer from Wisconsin has done a heck of a job at the helm. But the storyline with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish is the loss of head coach Brian Kelly departing to LSU. Now it is the Marcus Freeman era, the defensive coordinator taking over, and it will be his first game coaching in the Fiesta Bowl. Now, who do I like in this matchup? I like the Irish to win it. They're a very resilient team. They've shown they can put up the points and stop you as well. They've been red hot down the stretch. I like them in this game, but I think it's going to be a very, very good one. The next game that we have on the table is the Rose Bowl presented by Capital One Venture X. We have 11th-ranked Utah against 6th-ranked Ohio State. Ohio State opens as 4.5-point favorites against the Pac-12 champion Utah Utes. Utah is 10-3 on the season, and they've had really a remarkable year with the tragedy that they've been able to overcome after the deaths of Aaron Lowe and Ty Jordan. Kyle Whittingham has been able to keep this team on track and lead them to that Pac-12 championship, beating Oregon twice late down the stretch. They have a defense that loves to put the pressure on you, and they will be looking to hit Ohio State quarterback CJ Stroud early and often. But that is just the focus on the other side with Ohio State. The Buckeyes are 10-2, and they have that Heisman finalist as a freshman at quarterback, CJ Stroud, throwing for almost 4,000 yards, 38 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. He's been one of the best players in the nation. Their losses are to Oregon and Michigan. This Ohio State team has been at the top of the polls for most of the season. And let's not forget that this Ohio State team is absolutely dangerous. The running back, Travion Henderson, he can burn you on the ground over 1,000 yards there. And wide receiver, Jackson Smith Njigba for Ohio State, he can burn you through the air as well. Ohio State will look to score and pile on the points against this Utah team. I think it's going to be a shootout, but this game hinges on whether or not CJ Stroud will have time to throw back there, whether Utah can get to him or if Ohio State can give him time to throw. If CJ Stroud has time to work and do what he does, Ohio State should be fine in this game. But if Utah is able to put the pressure on defense, they'll find themselves in a very good spot as well. Now, the third New Year's Six Bowl is the All-State Sugar Bowl, where we have the 7th-ranked Baylor Bears versus the 8th-ranked Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss opens as a 1.5-point favorite. Ole Miss, playing in the incredibly tough SEC, has went 10-2 and has wins against Arkansas and Texas A&M, their losses being to Bama and Auburn. This team, this Lane Kiffin-led team, has been led by Matt Corral, the quarterback, who's been lighting up the draft boards. He's near the top of a lot of people's draft boards and will look to go very high. And he's looking to cap what's going to be a very, very good season for him. He's going to look to throw the ball deep down the field, show off that massive arm of his, and generate some offense for the Ole Miss Rebels. But they're playing the Big 12 champion, Baylor Bears. The Baylor Bears, after last season going 2-7, has been able to turn it around, go 11-2 this year with very impressive wins over Iowa State, BYU, Oklahoma, and then beating Oklahoma State after they got beat early in the conference championship game when it mattered. If it wasn't for Baylor in that conference championship game, Oklahoma State would probably be in the playoffs. So this Baylor Bears team is no slouch themselves. The story for them, quarterback Gary Bohannon will be coming back after missing the final 2.5 games, but they'll look to run the ball on the ground with running back Abram Smith, almost 1,500 yards on the ground and 12 touchdowns. They'll look to pound the rock. Ole Miss will look to throw it. It's going to be two teams with very different styles clashing in this All-State Sugar Bowl. But now we get to the big games, the college football playoff semifinals. The first game of which, the Cotton Bowl Classic, number 4 Cincinnati versus number 1 Alabama. David versus Goliath. Alabama opens as a favorite by almost 2 touchdowns. The Cincinnati, the group of 5 team that can, they're going to look to show the nation that they can hang with the elite. Cincinnati has gone completely undefeated, American champions, 13-0 with wins against Notre Dame in South Bend. Quarterback Desmond Ridder has thrown for 30 touchdowns, and he's been throwing the ball, handing it off to Jerome Ford, who's run for 1,200 yards and 19 touchdowns in his own right. And that defense, especially led on the outside by corners Ahmad Gardner and Kobe Bryant, they're going to look to stand up to this mighty, mighty Crimson Tide team and shock the world. But this is the Alabama Crimson Tide, number 1 in the nation, SEC champions, 12-1 with only 1 loss at Texas A&M and College Station, which is still not an easy place to play any given Saturday. This is still the defending national champions with Nick Saban. This Alabama Crimson Tide team, as always, is loaded. On the offensive side, they have the Heisman Trophy winner, Bryce Young. Bryce Young has shown that he has been the best quarterback in the nation, all year long. And even without wide receiver John Mechie III, who has 96 catches, he's been an absolute weapon. John Mechie III was lost in the conference championship game with a knee injury. Wide receiver Jameson Williams, who has actually been the leading receiver in terms of yards and touchdowns, will look to fill his place. And even so, they have a stud running back in Brian Robinson Jr. that has run for over 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns. And that defense for Alabama, Edge Will Anderson Jr. coming off the edge and hitting your quarterback, Jordan Battle in the secondary. He's going to wreak havoc all over the place. This Alabama team, like always, is very, very well-rounded and is very, very good and can kill you and beat you in many different ways. This game is David versus Goliath. Alabama will look to prove to be who they always are, and Cincinnati will be looking to silence the critics and win this game. So now, on the other side, the Orange Bowl. Number 3 Georgia Bulldogs versus the number 2 Michigan Wolverines. The Georgia Bulldogs lost in the SEC championship to Alabama. They enter 12-1. That conference championship game was their only loss of the season. They spent much of the season atop the poll at number 1, and it's clear to see why. And it's not really because of their offense, but it's because of their defense. Their defense has been the best in the nation, shutting down every team with the exception of Alabama, but they have been giving up 9.5 points per game, which is an astounding number. They have studs on every level of the defense. That defensive line is absolutely scary with Devontae Wyatt, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis. Those 3 guys for any offensive line will cause trouble. Linebacker Nakobe Dean is arguably the best player on that defense. And in the secondary, cornerback Darion Kendrick will look to be a shutdown corner for anybody. Now, the big storyline, we know the defense can play, but will quarterback Stetson Bennett be able to lead the Georgia Bulldogs to the promised land? Because so many times they've gotten so close, but is this finally their year? Can Stetson Bennett do it? The quarterback battle with JT Daniels all year, Stetson Bennett has been named the starter, and the pressure's on him to see if he can deliver the Georgia Bulldogs to the championship game. But standing in their way are the Big Ten champion Michigan Wolverines, the leaders and best, so they say. 12-1 with securing a win against Ohio State for the first time in what seems like forever. Harbaugh's got it done. Those demons are gone, and then they won the conference championship game against Iowa. This Michigan Wolverines team is absolutely no slouch. That two-headed monster in the backfield for Michigan, Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum, they are running up and down the field on you. That is their bread and butter. They love to pound the ball and throw it on the outside with Cade McNamara, who is not a bad quarterback in his own right. Some people say that Cade McNamara is actually the better quarterback in this game when comparing him and Stetson Bennett. But Michigan, their strength on offense is really running the football. That two-headed monster, they're going to have to deal with them. And Michigan has some studs on defense too. A Heisman finalist on defense, Aiden Hutchinson, with 14 sacks. He has been wreaking havoc and is looking like the nation's best prospect, potentially the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. And on the other side, they have David Ojabo and cornerback DJ Turner in the secondary that can also shut you down. The matchup that Michigan and Georgia, they will clash in the trenches. The thunder and lightning combination of Haskins and Corum for Michigan will be butting heads with Georgia's defense. How will that play out? And the winner of that battle will win the game. Now, Georgia opens as a 7.5-point favorite. Personally, I think it'll be closer than that. I don't think it would be a bad idea to put money on Michigan outright, but that's just me. No matter what, I think you're going to have two very, very entertaining college football semi-playoff games that will lead to an even better national championship game. So I think the question on everybody's mind is, who will be in the national championship game? Who will win these semis and advance? And my prediction is I think that the national championship game in Indianapolis will be between the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Michigan Wolverines. I think Alabama, although it's closer than a lot of people say it will advance on to beat Cincinnati and go to the national championship game, make their return back. And Michigan will upset Georgia. Michigan will find a way to get past that vaunted defense and put up points on the board. They have a blueprint from Alabama that they're going to follow, and they're going to pound the rock, and they're going to win that game. So that will be the national championship game, Alabama and Michigan. And that's all I have for you guys. And until next time, we'll be back with the national championship game. Once that game is decided, we'll have NFL content on the way. We'll have all sorts of stuff for in the future. And until next time, I'm out.